Welcome to the Ashes to Beauty, the Divorce Life podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Marie Laswell, divorce coach specializing in finance and real estate at Stephanie Marie Living. In this podcast, we will take a look at what it looks like to live through divorce, the good, the bad, and the ugly, a peek into individual stories as their ashes from divorce over time are transformed into beauty. Hello, beautiful listeners. Thank you for tuning in with us today. I am with my dear friend, Mark, and he has been so generous to offer and come and chat with us today a little bit about his divorce journey. So thank you for being here, Mark.
Sure. Glad to be here.
So let's just dive right in. I like to start with the dirty stuff first. Tell us about your ashes from your divorce.
Well, it's kind of, it's kind of weird. I've listened to the last couple of episodes and I feel like mine is pretty fresh compared to the ladies that you've spoken to before. I was married to my ex-wife for 20 years. And we were in ministry for all of those years. About the year 18, we had a pretty significant event happen that kind of broke us, and we really tried hard. We worked at it to try to fix it, but it didn't really, we were just not ever able to reconnect. So that left us not only with a marriage that had fallen apart, but we were leading a church, and so we had to deal with that, and because of the circumstances, we have a lot of kids. We have a very, very unique family situation. Some older, some younger, some adults, and then some that are still living at home at the time. And our adult children were a little bit more. It was tough on them, and as a result, there was a lot of tension just about the whole situation, and then to kind of, I guess, to kind of just put an exclamation point on all of it. About 3 months after our divorce was final, my son lost his baby son to SIDS. He was 4 months old, and that was it was just impossible. There's no words. There's no way to explain it. So you had tragedy on top of grief, on top of all kinds of raw emotion, and then it just left a real, just I wouldn't have had a frame of reference to handle it before, and now I don't have any frame of reference or context to handle it afterward. And then 6 months later, after losing his son, my son actually took his own life, and it was, it just felt like everything just kept crashing, and still does. One of the things that I know and experience on a regular basis is the sneakiness of grief. The moments that you don't know are going to be moments until you're right in the middle of them. The memories that come because you're in a certain place, or you smell something, or you see something, or you're in a certain place, and you just so that's all kind of part of it. The loss of kind of, I don't know, just the loss of what you thought was, and then trying to figure out how to bring something to an end that you didn't want to bring to an end in a way that cares for people. I guess I don't know. That seems kind of weird, but that's really what I was processing at the time. How do I bring this thing in for a landing so it's not an absolute train wreck?
Right. You want to bring dignity to the other person because that's a person that you've loved for, in your case, a very long time. That's a lot of life lived, and then you're immediately hit with another big, heavy mourning situation that you've lost your person. That would have probably been a lot of comfort, and you guys would have been able to comfort each other through those two major losses, and you're just all alone trying to deal with so much loss, so much grief. That's really heavy. Yeah.
And everybody is probably, everybody who's been in a divorce situation has those moments where it's, yours, mine, and ours, friends, those kind of things. I'm much more introverted than my ex-wife, and as a result, most of our friendships at the time, she was the connector, and so that means that our friends, and this is not ugly toward them, but our friends kind of became her friends because she was the connector.
Yeah.
It's not good, bad, or anything. It just is what it is. But I did end up feeling kind of isolated and alone. A lot of that's on me. I mean, I own that. That's my own quirks. But yeah, it's a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, for sure. And so in my talking to people or my research about divorcees, it seems like there's usually time before the actual buildup of, okay, this isn't going to work out. And for you, it came at 18 years. Were there any signs before then that now looking back, they were like, oh, maybe this was something that I missed that I could have picked up on a long time ago. And then maybe if it was addressed earlier, there would have been that ability to kind of save it and work through it.
I think that for me, one of the biggest realizations with regard to what happened in my married life was understanding that just because you as a couple are working toward the same purpose, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're fostering a genuine, real, deep and lasting connection. We were both very passionate about what we were doing with regard to our life and our ministry, and we're very, very connected to, this is the way that we think that the church should operate. This is the way that we think ministry should be. We were doing the things that we'd always wanted to see done in ministry, and when it all started to come apart, that was the things that I kept bringing up. But what about this? But what about this? And that was, I didn't put it together at the time, but now my divorce was finalized in 2020. So now having a little bit of hindsight behind me, I realized that I was trying to connect her to a mission rather than to me, trying to bring back this sense of shared purpose rather than actually loving her in the way that she needed to be loved. And I can, like I said, I can look back at it now, and because of that kind of misplaced understanding of what it meant to be married. I thought it's two people on a journey accomplishing the same purpose. Typical guy. Yes. It left her feeling unimportant and unsafe. With me, and I can even go back and look at it myself. The fact that our togetherness was all about this mission that we were supposedly on. It kind of left me feeling unappreciated and unwanted. in many ways. So that I think is one of the most important things that I've learned from the process is that a relationship has to be about connection, not just about shared purpose. You have to be connecting with a person, not just, I don't know, I guess in a real way, we were just kind of assets in each other's mission at some level.
Do you feel like that shifted during the marriage? Did it start off that way, or do you think it shifted?
I think that it was a big part of what we always wanted. You know, that was from the beginning of our relationship. We were very connected to the church and ministry and those kind of things. And I think that it was just so ingrained in us at the time to be on mission, to be on purpose, you know, to do the things that, you know, you're called to do this and yada yada. You know, all of the stuff that's both true and kind of religious cliche. I think a lot of times we put a lot more value in the doing and we forget about the being of being a follower of Christ, and it leaves us in a place where we can lead lives that from the outside looking in can look fulfilled and dynamic and incredible, but can be rather empty and unfulfilled because we're missing out on connection. You know, Jesus didn't die to give us a mission. He died to connect with us. Why should we in our human relationships think that they should be all about mission rather than about connection?
So it sounds like maybe for both of you it was consuming your identity so much that it made sense for you to couple up and pair together because you were both so passionate about it, but maybe left space for that intimacy in your relationship that can, like you've said several times, the connection to not happen because there just wasn't space for it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that having a purpose and having a passion is a great thing, and it's an important thing, but it's also only a thing.
Yeah.
You know, you are a person with or without a goal or a purpose. You're still a person, and I think that sometimes we surrender our personhood for a higher purpose, and they should be tied together.
Yeah. Well, and even if it's not a religious purpose or a mission per se, it's what the world tells us, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of pressure to perform and to reach goals and attain certain things.
Yeah.
And people easily get lost in that, and we get so busy, and obviously you have a lot of kids, and so the kids take over and their schedules take over, and so we have to be very intentional about leaving that space for that relationship to foster and continue to grow.
Yeah, I could have just as easily been caught up in trying to make a lot of money and buy the kids all the stuff. That could have been just as consuming a purpose. You know, but again, the way that I think about it is I think that my ex-wife and I loved past each other a lot. You know, I would do things that to me were me expressing love. You know, to me, it expressed love when I would, you know, take care of the kids or clean up or do the laundry or you know, do that kind of thing. That was me using acts of service as an expression of love. But to her, that was just, hey, you're on the team. We all do this.
Yeah.
You know, and not that it's wrong, but her love language was quality time. So I unknowingly, by doing all of these things, these acts of service that I thought were communicating love to her, was actually pulling away from the thing that would have actually communicated love, which is just spending time. Just, hey, let's go do something. Let's go get a coffee. Let's, you know, let's go on a trip. You know, the things that would have actually communicated what I was trying to communicate.
Right.
You know, and in the same way, you know, one of my things was, you know, I'm a physical touch guy, because most guys are, but also, you know, words of affirmation. You know, because we were so just get it done, we were running pretty fast paced. There's very little, hey man, that was awesome when you did that, or, you know, man, you did a really great job when you did that, you know, and so there was something missing for me too, and I'm like, man, can't you see all this stuff I'm doing this for you? and there was just not it was not that she didn't appreciate it. It was just that it wasn't connecting with her in the way that I had hoped.
Yeah, man, there's lots of great tips and advice that I'm hearing coming from you. As far as if somebody is considering going through a divorce, just maybe thinking that make sure you know yourself first, and then also knowing your partner and what it is that they need fulfilled. And obviously, we need to come up with some of our needs on our own, right? It's not always for somebody else to fulfill for us, but making sure you're on the same page and that you're pouring into each other in the ways that speak to them and not just making the assumption. And so there's a lot of self-awareness that has to be involved in having a healthy relationship, is a lot of what I'm picking up and hearing from you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We're created for connection, and God designed us to have partners in fulfilling the needs that He's put in our heart. So while, yes, my ultimate need for love and acceptance and purpose does come from my relationship with God as Father, a lot of my needs are met by the people that I work with and by the people that I'm in relationship with, by my friends, and yes, by my spouse. You know, that's part of the design. Right. And the ability to kind of communicate, this is what I need and this is where we're missing it, I think is something that is really, really important. You know, we went through in our effort to try to repair the damage. We went through some counseling, and that was part of it. You know, you need to communicate your needs. You need to talk about what's going on, and we were working on those things. Unfortunately, it was just too much. Yeah. It had gone too far,
right? And
there was not anything that could really save it. But I think that I guess the most important thing for me when talking to someone who's considering divorce is don't leave anything on the table. You know, I know that while we can all second guess on the little things, I know I didn't leave anything on the table with regard to the effort to reconcile. And that leaves me at a place of peace in the middle of pain, you know, because it still sucks. Right. I mean, it still hurts, and I still wish that it hadn't have happened or hadn't have played out the way it did. But I know that I can go to bed at night knowing that I wasn't unwilling to do it. I did. I went above and beyond to the best of my ability to try to keep together what I believe is, you know, a holy thing. You know, I do believe that marriage is a holy thing. I never intended to marry someone for it to end.
Right. Well, I don't think any of us do, unfortunately.
I would think so.
Well, and that's part of the beautiful thing that came from your divorce, is that you do have this sense of peace because what you did, the effort that you put into doing all that you felt like you could do. What are some other beautiful things that have come since your divorce and through your healing and growth and all of that?
Well, I think that part of the process for me was really that a lot of the things that we've been talking about, getting a little bit of self-awareness has been, how people experience me. What are the things that I unintentionally do, that are experienced in a different way than I had intended them. That was a big thing for me. I learned a lot in the process about grace, about hey, it's not just as easy as, well, this is what you're supposed to do, so just do this. The answers are rarely as simple as we hope that they are, because if they were, then the divorce rate wouldn't be what
Right.
it is, and particularly within the Christian community, there are as many Christians getting divorced as there are non-Christian people. So if it were just as easy as, well, the 10 Commandments say this,
Right.
yada yada yada, but I've learned that there are complexities within people, trauma responses, emotional baggage that we all have to a degree, but having that as something that you're aware of is different than having actual compassion and empathy for it.
Right.
And I've learned from that.
Well, even understanding that you have it. I mean, I feel like a lot of times we're walking around and we have no idea that we've got childhood trauma that is getting us hung up all sorts of ways that we're just not even aware of, that it is a trauma
until you
affecting
step
us.
on the landmine.
Yes. And then,
Yeah.
so many things. Like, I do feel like a lot of people that go through divorce, their divorce is the aha moment where they're like, oh, there are things from my past that I've got to deal with before I'm going to be in healthy relationship. And so,
Certainly.
yeah, it's just wild to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about, and I guess that, for those that are on the other side of finalization, who have finalized, do the work. You can't just, well, my ex was crazy. You can't just, even if your ex was, it always takes two to tango. There's always something that you need to take from it. There, you will have a part.
Yeah.
It's never 100, 0. There's always a percentage. And the only way for us as people to grow and to have what we desire is to actually own the stuff that we brought to the mess.
Right. Yeah.
So that we can avoid the messes in the future, or so that we can be more effective in cleaning them up.
Right. And to that point, I would say, don't take on too much responsibility, because I think it can swing the other way. And as far as the forgiveness piece goes, like, you have to get to that point to move on, to forgive the other person. And it's also a huge step to forgiving yourself, because a lot of people that I talk to, like, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, whether it's self-inflicted or from their community, which usually it's both, to be honest. And that forgiveness piece is huge for moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. A phrase that I like to use is, that's not mine to carry.
I love that.
If somebody tries to put something on me, and it can be anything from a religious obligation to, well, why didn't you, that one is not mine to carry. It's easy to say and hard to do, but I really have to not carry it. I really have to leave those things, and just, I've got enough. I've got enough to carry on my own. I'm not going to pick up somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about is, the shame and the guilt and the obligation that so many people, particularly from a religious background. I know about you. You and I have a shared history a bit, in that we were both preacher's kids.
Right.
Well, preacher's kids that got divorced, I mean, my Lord, we might as well just walk around with a scarlet D.
Yeah.
But that's not something that I'm going to take on, because that's external, and that's weight that someone's trying to put on me, that they're trying to make me feel shame for something that they perceive.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to carry that because I've got enough of my own stuff that I need to work on specifically, rather than just this overarching feeling that I should feel bad about myself because of something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many layers here.
Couple.
Yeah. What is one thing that you would like for our listeners to take away from our talk today, or something that you weren't able to share that you think is important for anyone going through divorce, pre-divorce, in the middle of it all, or recovery?
I think that if I were to, this is going to sound odd, but I think that I have a pretty successful divorce. And what I mean by that is my ex-wife and I have both chosen to be adults. We've both chosen to take a lot of the emotion out of it, to regardless of how hurt or how, both of us have plenty of reason to try to make it hard on each other, but neither of us choose to. We communicate well, but we have boundaries with our communication. We communicate only about the kids, or only about things that have to do with the agreements that we've made in our separation. We've had opportunities to have some really good conversations about why we ended up where we ended up. We've both apologized for the mess that we've made. We've both owned our part of it, and we've both asked for and received forgiveness from one another. Not for the purpose of reconciliation, but for the purpose of freedom, really, because there's a lot of weight that comes from that, and as a result, I think that we do okay by our kids. I think that it leaves room for each of us to know that regardless, you're not going to have someone who's actively trying to tear you down. That we were in each other's corner while we were married. There's no reason for us to not be in each other's corner afterward, with regard to the things that matter, which is our kids,
Right.
which is, wanting both of us wherever we might end up to be successful and fulfilled. I don't have any ill will toward my ex-wife. I want her to have the life that God's called her to have. And, so I guess that's the thing that I would hope that we could kind of turn down the rage and turn up the understanding, and just really work hard to be. I hate to say just to be grown-ups, but that's really what it amounts to be the adults in the room, because you are the adults in the room.
To still carry on that dignity for one another as former lover. I mean, former friends, best friends, co-parents. Like there's a lot of life that still has to live, especially if you share children.
Well, and that's just the thing. It matters, it matters if my kids see me being hateful toward my ex-wife. It matters. Especially in the kind of situations that we had with the losses and stuff like that. They needed to see that it doesn't matter that mom and dad aren't together. Mom and dad both individually love you and want to be with you through this mess. They're way more important than whether or not I get what I want in a settlement, or whether or not I get to make her feel bad about what. I mean, those things are just so petty to me. I don't want revenge. I want to move past. I I want to take what I've got, and I want to move forward and become who I'm created to be. I want to find the new normal,
Right.
and move forward better than I was before.
Right. Yeah. You want to come out of it on the better side.
Yeah, and holding on to that bitterness and that anger and all the mess that causes all the messes between former spouses, it just doesn't have any value for me.
Right. Well, I love that about your story and that beautiful piece that you guys have been able to have those conversations that probably a lot of us don't get to have, and to bring some of that freedom and that closure with a lot of still love, gentle love, I think, for your ex and how you've been able to move forward in that relationship. And I really admire that about you guys. And I really appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And we will see you next time. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
For more information about services provided by myself, you can find me at Stephanie Marie Living on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you for tuning in today. And to our producer, Jazz, at Possibilities Podcast Center.